I believe in the future, wires will unite different cities, and a man in one part of the country may communicate with another in a distant place.
When Alexander Graham Bell wrote those words in 1878, he foreshadowed the basic problems for all future research in communication, even though, at the time, the telephone itself was only 2 years old. A man in one part of the country may communicate with another in a distant place. First, research had to meet the challenge of getting man's voice clearly to that distant place, the problem of transmission. It was, of course, the miracle of the telephone that made possible the transmission of speech by transforming the speaker's voice into electrical waves.
Hello?
To be changed back to sound waves at the other end of the wire.
Hello?
But over long distances, the voice gradually faded away.
How are you? How are you?
Despite that fact, by 1912, a man in New York could talk into a telephone.
Talk louder.
And with the aid of various devices, he could be heard more or less distinctly in Denver.
Talk louder.
But without something to strengthen voice signals along the way, that seemed about as far as people could talk. Then came the Audion vacuum tube invented by Dr. Lee DeForest. With continued research and development, Dr. Harold Arnold of Bell Telephone Laboratories improved the original design to obtain a better vacuum. The new tubes enabled engineers to build amplifiers which were effective voice boosters. At last, it was possible to complete the line from coast to coast. 1915, the first transcontinental telephone line made front-page news. But there were still telephone men who knew the job had only started.
It's a great accomplishment. Nobody can doubt that. All of you men have talked over this so-called transcontinental line just as I have. By the time my voice hits Frisco, I sound like Jenny Lind. Or vice versa. And I only wish it was funnier.
One of the really rough problems is those vacuum tube amplifiers. Each one we use on the line adds its own distortion to the conversation.
You're right. The amplifiers are a problem. By the way, do any of you men know what the word telephone really means? It's from two Greek words, meaning far and sound. And I would say that if we had one main job, all of us, it is to make darn sure that the far sound isn't far. So we have got to improve those amplifiers.
I don't know. At $22 for one 3-minute call, I'm not sure the public is going to sort of jump over itself to call coast to coast.
Oh, don't you believe it. The way this country is growing, there'll be plenty of people who'll want to call. Once we get the cost down.
The problem is how.
Well, I know one way. Personally, I feel in the year 1915, it is a waste of our customers' money for one pair of wires to carry only one conversation.
You know, we've been working on that carrier idea, but it's still a long way from being good enough.
Well, we've got to make it good enough. We'll need a carrier system that will send at least 5 conversations on one wire.
5 conversations on one line. Impossible? Not at all. Three years later, in 1918, 5 individual conversations could be transmitted on one pair of wires with an improved carrier system. How did it work? Well, carrier transmitted a far wider band of frequencies on one pair of wires than a single conversation required. The extra conversations hitchhiked along those frequencies without interfering with one another. At the other end, the conversations were filtered apart and sent on to their separate destination. carrier was a big step toward better service at lower cost. But with more and more conversations on one line, the problem of distortion had to be solved. A voice going across country by carrier, which started out in San Francisco sounding like this,
Hello?
was apt to arrive in New York sounding more like this. As the years passed, men sought ways to free the far sound from such distortion. Finally, in 1927, a young telephone scientist named Harold Black made use of the fact that an amplifier would distort a voice signal.
Hello?
Black took a small fraction of that distorted voice signal and put it through a feedback circuit to reverse the distortion. The reversed voice signal was put back into the amplifier. Thus, the very tendency of the amplifier to distort now produced a signal that was almost distortion-free.
Hello?
The feedback principle worked with so many voices at once that more conversations than ever before could now be carried clearly on a single line. But still, beyond a certain limit, extremely high frequencies would fade out, as though nature herself had said, thus far, no farther. But scientists and engineers have a way of confounding nature in their struggle to bring the far sound near. They conceived the idea of enclosing a single wire inside a copper tube to provide a protective pathway for conversations. This was coaxial cable. Each one of those early tubes carried 200 conversations at one time. The inventors of coaxial have long since retired from active work at the laboratory. But their remarkable achievement in creative thinking was the basis for further research and development that resulted in cables that can carry nearly 2,000 conversations in every pair of copper tubes.
O sistema de televisão brasileiro, SBT, não tem isso. A Factshoot Videos tem. Se o SBT não tem, a Factshoot Videos tem e já dublou. Chaves e Chapolin, do México ao Chile. No Show, Jingle e Dango, no Chile. Um sorteio especial, no show Jingle e Dango, no Chile. Foi uma transmissão local do Chile em preto e branco, em 1977, no Chile. Em 2024, o show ganhou uma versão colorida. Veja aqui no YouTube, OK Who e Bibli. Nos vídeos da Thatcherl. Nos vídeos da Thatcherl. Nos vídeos da Thatcherl. Nos vídeos da Thatcherl.
Moedinhas e chocolate pan é um tesouro bem gostoso de comer. Moedinhas e chocolate pan é uma delícia, todo mundo vai querer. Lá em casa, nas cestinhas, não pode faltar. A criançada se diverte, ninguém para de comer. Moedinhas e chocolate pan é uma delícia, todo mundo vai querer.
Chocolate Pan, fazendo seus momentos inesquecíveis.
Pastel Vídeos. Aqui o mundo assiste.